you to all the guys for the songs this evening and for leading service and for everyone your participation in it. Got a whole bunch of you to preach to tonight now. Hope everyone can stay awake. Turn those lights down. You might have to turn the AC on a little bit. Don't let anyone get too comfortable. I do hope that our message this afternoon is encouraging to you in some way. A lot of good songs that go with what we're talking about today. I love to tell the story and some of the others, even the message that our brother read for us about blessed be the Lord who wouldn't give us up, really sums up the mentality of Jesus as he looks at humans here in this life, even especially maybe while he was on earth. Matthew 9 is where we'll begin our study together. He said he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and they were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is truly plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray therefore the Lord of harvest, that he'll send forth laborers into his harvest. Now, I understand whenever I look at the scriptures that Jesus came at the most opportune time in history, didn't he? I mean, the Bible tells that at fullness of times Christ came. He came at the perfect time to be able to have a maximum impact for his life and his sacrifice on the cross. But I think one of the things I end up doing every now and then is going, man, those were the days. For evangelism, those were the days. 3,000 people obeying the gospel at one time, I want to see that. You want to see that? I've been pretty excited. We had a couple of weeks ago where I think I was adding up how many baptisms I counted up in a week just here in the U.S., and I think it was like 15 or 16 in a week, and I thought, what a great week. And there's been times in some place I've been, and there'll be like 23 or 24 baptisms in one day over in India. And it's just incredible, and it does me good. But I think about these times, and I go, the harvest really was plenteous, wasn't it? And it was. What I do, though, is I get a little bit pessimistic sometimes. Instead of being excited about those who do come to Christ and those good times and the fruitful times, I get to look at those times and go, I wish it was like that still, because nobody wants it anymore. You ever hear people say that? Seems like nobody wants the truth anymore these days. And people find all these reasons and all these excuses why all these different evangelistic types of works won't work. Nobody likes people knocking their doors anymore, so we ain't going to do that. Or people say, well, it's a numbers game and it's not a good ratio, so it's not very fruitful to go do that. Or we can't go do this, or we didn't profit off of this. And just nobody wants the truth. And what can happen with us Christians is we can get very pessimistic about the gospel and about opportunity. Right? But I believe that the harvest really is plentiful, to be honest with you. Do you? And I'll tell you why I think it's plentiful. I may not always see the numbers coming, the thousands at a time, but I think the need is great. It's the law of supply and demand, isn't it? There's a lot of people who are running around this world and need help. And I look around at all the hurt and the chaos that the lying is continuing to cause. Think about that. 1 Peter 5:8, he said, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, is a roaring lion, walking about seeking may devour. I believe that the harvest is so plentiful because I see all the problems going on in the world today. I deal with so many people and so many lives and homes that are broken and mangled and dysfunctional. I see people who are hurting and burdened down with all the cares of the world. I see small children with so much anxiety they can barely function because they haven't been trained on how to deal with the world. I see grown men who don't act like grown men. I see drugs tearing things up and alcohol ripping lives apart. I see sin. Don't you? That's where the opportunity is. We think of these white, beautiful fields being, that's the opportunity. I love that. When I lived in West Texas, it is pretty barren. Bo and I were talking about that earlier. It's pretty barren out there, except for during cotton harvest. And it's just miles and miles of white. And I love that. I love seeing that. And that's what you and I think of these white, plentiful fields. But the plentiful fields looks like broken, hurt, wounded people. That's what it is. And the sad truth is there's lots of that. And I think that there are people who want what we have to offer. I think there are people out there who want hope. I I think there are people out there who want to know why there's peace and how there can be peace in their homes again. I think there are people who want to know how they can finally put the bottle down. I think there are people out there who want to know how they can finally be the dad they're supposed to be. Do you? Do you believe that the harvest is truly plenteous? Because if you and I believe that the harvest is truly plenteous, we're gonna need the heart set that Jesus had to be able to take full advantage of that plentiful harvest. He looked out and he was moved with compassion. We talked about the Apostle Paul the other night, whenever he came into Athens, and it said he was stirred in himself, right? And he just went to frantically teaching, and that's kind of the idea here. Move with compassion. Now, sometimes move with compassion is the idea of, it sounds like this. Aw. You know? Aw. You know, you watch a little kid. Oh. You know? And that's not compassion here. Compassion here is it turned his stomach. You ever worried about something enough that made you sick to your stomach? Dad used to, I hated it whenever Dad picked me up from school because I inevitably have stomach ache or what have you. First question, he said, "What you worried about, boy?" And I'd be like, can I have just an upset stomach? Without being something psychological. But the truth is, Dad was right. I mean, a lot of times that you worry about things, or things upset you, and they can get you all the way down to bed. And that's the idea of Jesus. He cared so deeply about people. He couldn't just witness them hurting. He couldn't just witness them shepherdless. He couldn't just witness them broken and wandering pointlessly through life without purpose and not feel something. And it turned his stomach as he looked out there, and it moved him, not just to an awe factor, but we've got to do something. And that's not a small thing for the Son of God to feel that way, in my opinion, especially looking from a human standpoint. You think about these type of people, it was these ones, the ones that he said had stoned the ones that had been sent to him, and they killed the prophets. It's these people. But again and again he said, Jerusalem, even though you've done this, I long to gather you in. I long to fix you. I long to help you. I want to make it better. That's compassion. Compassion is not going by and looking at someone on the side of the road going, that looks tough. Compassion is something that moves you to do, that moves you to take action, to move you to find solutions. That's real care, right? That's compassion. And I got to ask myself, am I really compassionate? What's moving me? What's moving me to go out there and try to help people? Am I moved? I believe one of the reasons Jesus was so moved, it wasn't simply, as we talked about this morning, that there were people who were destitute of the world's things. Not that they were just a bunch of poor people who needed a meal. He looked at people who were in danger of something that was much more long-lasting in its effects than here. Just like we discussed this morning about placing our affection on things above the hunger and thirst after righteousness, if we want to have the same type of compassion that Christ and his disciples had, his apostles had, we've got to look past this life to summon that, to understand what the stakes really are. 2 Corinthians chapter 5:11, he said, knowing the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. You know, you'll meet a lot of people in this life, they believe in hell and they believe in heaven. And I imagine I take a poll through this room, and there's probably going to be a person in here who doesn't say, I believe in heaven, and there's probably not going to be a person in here who doesn't say they believe in hell. How real is hell to you, though? Because hell is very real to Jesus. Talked about it more than anybody else in the written scriptures, didn't he? And it wasn't because Jesus was morbid. It was because Jesus knew what was on the line with people's souls. He knew that this temporary small life and the trouble that they faced here, that it was nothing compared to what was in store for them if they didn't live for him and give themselves to him in this life. And you and I, we worry about so many things. When we talk about being full, and so then we can't focus on the spiritual, we get full on the physical relationships that we have with people. We get full because people will show up at Christmas dinner. We get fooled because people will continue to be in our lives and allow us to be close to them and have physical relationship. And the question is, what am I willing to risk to really save their life? Because the truth is, if I want to save a life, I don't care what I'm risking. I want to save a life. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it sounds like. I don't care if you think I hate you just because I'm trying to provoke you to better. I don't care if it's an inconvenience to you. My mother-in-law does not care if she inconveniences me. Contextual context, right? It's not bad when it started that way. She doesn't care if it's an inconvenience to me, if it's 2 or 3 in the morning and she calls because she happened to be up and saw that there's a tornado warning in her area. That's love. That's what real love does, right? That's what real compassion does. It said this might be inconvenience, but let's not worry about that right now. Let's worry about life. Let's worry about what's most important. This isn't about just hitting a golf ball and saying 4 to people. This is about risking life, reputation, and relationship to pull people out of the fire, because hell is terrible. And hell will be terrible for everyone who goes. Not just the homeless drug addict out on the street that I've never met, never will met, but for my wife, and for myself, and for my children, and for my own mama. Hell is real. And we all stand a real risk of going there if someone doesn't care enough to help keep me away from it. The compassion of Jesus and his disciples were one that looked past this life and said, I got to save you now so that you won't be punished in. That's what compassion should pull us to do. Maybe we're not as evangelistic as we ought to be because we're not dwelling enough on how incredible heaven is, or maybe how bad hell really is. Maybe we're not taking as many risks with our loved ones as we ought to because we have not made the personal connection, it's a hard one to make, that their soul really is in danger and that this is a big deal. Compassion will cause you to move and it will cause you to do. And let me tell you, there is more opportunity. I hear this from people. I go in to do meetings and I don't have a whole lot for me to do in some places. And I'll be like, is there anyone I can go see? I'm like, no, I don't know nobody. That's a lack of compassion. And the more compassion you have, the more you'll realize that is a long list of people that you want not just yourself to talk to, but somebody else. Compassion, warrants compassion, saves lives. And there's plenty of opportunity if we look up. Do you long to save people today? Jesus said this after he noticed that. He didn't just look out there and say, well, this is a problem, but what can you do? Nobody wants it anymore. Now we looked out and he said, this is a problem. And the answer isn't all of these people getting themselves right and marching themselves to a church building and doing the right thing. He said there needs to be laborers. Now, I'm not talking against people coming to church, but the concept is that the field don't hoe itself. The seeds don't plant itself. The seeds don't get watered on their own. It takes somebody cultivating and laboring. And I feel this more than I ever have before as time goes on, that the laborers are few. And I watch that. I watch it in elderships as well. And about how you have these shepherds trying to carry the load of many, and they're not supposed to be doing all the work. They're supposed to be equipping for the work. You can't carry it all. You can't get to every person. Nothing breaks my heart more. And to be honest with you, sometimes I lay there at night and I feel pulled like a piece of taffy. And I'm not trying to complain or whine. I'm just sitting there going, I can't get to everybody. And if you're laboring in the kingdom, I know you feel that sometimes. That's why Jesus looks at it. He looks out there and said, there is so much opportunity and there's so much wasted life, but we have so few helpers and we need laborers, folks. There is a need for laborers in the kingdom today. There is a need for people who will do incredible things for the gospel. I want to give you a couple of categories of what is needed in this labor for the souls of mankind. There's not just a need for laborers, there's a need for people who are persistent. In the limited commission, Jesus, you remember, he sent out his disciples in pairs, right? And he said there in Matthew 10:11, whatsoever city you're telling will enter, inquire who it is worthy, and there abide till you go thence. And when you come to a house, salute it. And if the house is worthy, let your peace come unto it. And if the house is not worthy, then let your peace return to you. And whosoever shall not receive you nor hear your words when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. I don't think we probably talk about this passage enough, because there's a lot of logistics to there's a lot of things packed into this little piece of Scripture. You know, you have two ends of a spectrum in this. People who will give up too soon, and people who don't know when to let go. Neither one of those sound bad, don't they? The truth is, what we need is people who are persistent, but know when to move forward. And that's a hard thing to do. What we often do, though, I believe, as we talk about dusting off our feet, is we go and we go and we go until we get burnt out. And then we say, well, I'm not doing any good luck with this person over here. I can't get Mark to do anything. And so then I'm going to dust my feet off of Mark. And then I go and I take a seat and I stop evangelizing anyone at all. That's too often what dusting our feet off looks like for us today. I'm tired, I'm worn out, so I tried, so now I'm just going to take a seat. And other people can do it. That's not what he's talking about. What he's saying is you go, you teach the truth. You're planters and you're waters. And one of the things you and I need to remember, it's not about you, and it's not about me, and it's not about our wisdom, but it's about planting seeds. And the Word of God is quick, and it's powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword. That the gospel is the power of God to salvation. And what you and I need to do is not go out there and force people. We can't make people, but we plant the gospel. Over and over. But we take so much on ourselves when we can't get people to change and go, I can't do this. I'm not doing any good. Nothing I've done is doing any good. Knocking doors didn't do any good. Studying these people didn't do any good. Getting to church didn't do any good. Putting them in the water didn't do any good. They didn't stick around. And we sit here and we focus on us, me, kind of like old Elijah. Sit under a tree and cry and say, take me, I'm not doing any good. And all he is telling us to do is go be persistent. And that means go. You need to talk to the ones who let you talk to them until they won't let them talk to you. They won't let you talk to them anymore. And you go and you find the ones who won't let you talk to them at all, and you shake your feet off and you go find someone else to talk to. Keep going. I got a confession. There are times whenever I have not been as persistent as I needed to be in a way that's kind of shameful now. I was telling some folks earlier today that whenever I was running around with some of the older evangelists, there was one particular place Merle would take me back to every single year. Every year we go back to the same place. And every year we go back to that place, it was run down and barely open, and only a couple people there that wanted to be there. And me and Merle would go sit in the exact same houses and talk to the exact same people and have the exact same conversation about, well, aren't you coming to church? Don't you think it's time to get your life right? And they'd say the exact same thing. Yeah, probably, Merle. And he'd say, well, why don't you do it? And they'd say, I will. And then they wouldn't. Every year, year after year, we go back to the same places and have these same conversations. And I remember sitting there in the car with them going back like for the 4th year in a row and going, why are we doing this? Let's go find let's go knock a rich neighborhood or something. And that's not fun, by the way. Let's go do something different. Why do we keep coming back to the same place? Lo and behold, we went back to the same places, talked to the same people, had the same conversations, got the same answer, and one year got different results. Because after year after year after year, some things had finally shifted in their life, and all the planting and watering finally, something moved, and they came back. This happened after I wasn't there. We went and had those conversations, and I just remember feeling so ashamed. I mean, it's a weird feeling because I'm thankful that they came back, but feeling so ashamed. I don't remember what Merle said to me whenever I asked him why not at this point. But I'm glad there's persistent people in this world. I'm glad there were people who were persistent with me. I'm glad there's people who continue to be persistently working on me and my flaws. Aren't you? For you? The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, because we need more people who are willing not to give up. We need more people who are willing to face rejection, who are willing to come away without any visible fruits and say, that's okay, I'm going to go do it again. I think that's another reason why I think we need to spend a lot of time with one another, because there are nights and there are days sometimes whenever you need to be able to go sit on somebody's couch and you need to be able to cry because you went for the 17th time and you got the same answer from somebody and they won't change. You need to sit there and cry with them and pray with them, and then you need them to say, all right, you've had your cry. All right, now let's go do it again. That's what we need. Exhort one another, what's called it in a city, be hard to the deceitfulness of sin. Why do that? Because we need people who don't quit, who don't give up. I'm telling you. Would y'all put that there? We need laborers, we need people who are persistent. And if you haven't been lately, maybe you need that, I don't know, maybe you need a kick in the pants. We'll give that to you. Or maybe you need a pat on the back or a hug to say we can go do this. If you need that today, at the end of the sermon, I want you to come get it. Acts 21, 12 and 14, he says that the people were trying to get Paul to stay because his life was in danger if he went to Jerusalem. They besought him not to go to Jerusalem, and Paul answered, "What need you to weep and break my heart? For I'm ready not only to be bound lonely, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus." And we would not be persuaded, we cease saying, "The will of the Lord be done." They were worried about Paul because they knew that he was in dire risk of losing his life. The apostles, for the most part, all of them would lose their lives, wouldn't they? In some very brutal fashions. Jesus warned Peter that would happen, that they're the most awkward meal of fish ever, right? Do you love me more than these? And he said, you do what you want, but one of these days someone's going to lead you by your hand, and they're going to take you where you don't want to go. And that was about, for the gospel, he was going to face some tough times. And they were willing to do that. And I want you to know that the need for laborers means that there is a need for people who are willing to put it all on the line, because that's what it's going to take. This idea of preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ isn't all about black suits and black ties and white t-shirts and civilized people sitting down and eating with one hand under the table. This is talking about people who are in sin. We're talking about people whose lives are messed up, and it is hard sometimes to get involved and to help people the way that they need it because of how twisted up their life is. It's messy. And you need people who are willing to risk it. You know what people will do? They'll act like a trapped animal, right? And that's what we are. We're slaves to sin. He said we've been taken by the devil and enslaved. We're trapped at our own will, right? And that's snare. We were talking about coons the other day. Who was that? Me and Jeff? Talking about how coons look so cute and cuddly, and when I first started trapping some coons a while back, this was a chicken coon battle, just me getting rid, not like a moneymaker or anything. But I had a coon trap right in the middle of the yard, and I didn't want the kids to go mess with those coons, because they look really cute, they look cuddly. And I take them up there and I show it to them, look how cute he is, And she's like, oh, he's so cuddly, and then I'd say, oh, watch him, he'll reach out to you. He wants to hold your hand because they'll reach out so far. And I take a stick and I say, watch him, I'm going to give him, he wants this stick, and he's going to cuddle that stick. And they get that stick in their little hand and we eat it, and that's people. There are people who flat tell you, I need you, I want you, I have to have help. I've never wanted more now than ever. And then you reach out and you try to help them, and they will absolutely try to destroy you later on. We need people who are ready to be tough. We need people who are willing to be Pauls and Jesuses, who will go to Jerusalem, no matter what, even if it means their life, who will go to Rome and lose their life and have their head taken. We need people who are willing to go to Golgotha if it means saving a soul. We need people who are willing to get down in the mud and say, I'm willing to risk life, reputation for your sake. I'm willing to give up my time. I'm willing for you to hurt my feelings. I'm willing to put effort in, even though you may love me less. There's a need for people who are willing to rescue. And maybe you've lost some of the fire to do that right now. There is somebody whose life needs saving. And maybe you're the only one who can get down there and help them. It's time to risk something. Out of compassion, because there's plenty of opportunity and there's just not enough rescuers. Matthew chapter 9, Jesus had been talking to a whole group of people around him, and there was a certain ruler that came to him and they worshiped him, saying, my daughter, even at this point, is dead. And he said, come lay your hand on her and she'll live. And Jesus rose and he followed him, and so did the disciples. A whole circus came with him, by the way. They fall in there because it wasn't just like, come heal my daughter. She's dead. So Jesus goes all the way over there, and there's people like selling stuff and eating and minstrels playing music and people making noise out there. And Jesus says in verse 24, give place, the maid's not dead, but she sleeps. You know what they did? They laughed him to scorn. I don't know if you've ever been laughed to scorn. That's to be made fun of until it absolutely is hurts feelings. Why? Because she's dead. But he's just sleeping? What are you going to go do? I don't know what these people expected to see, but it looked like they came to see a comedy show the way that they're acting. Nobody believed that he was going to go in there and pull her back from the dead except for maybe the child's parent. So Jesus takes all of this ridicule, Jesus takes all of this scorn from all these people, all these skeptics, and he goes in anyways. When he finally got all the people out of there, he puts forth his hand, and he takes her by the hand, and the maid arose. I think there's a lot of people out there that people have tried to help them, like we talked about earlier. And maybe somebody gives up on them. But I think there's a lot of other people that we just make up our mind before we ever try to help them. They had their mind made up. There was nothing that could be done for this girl. I hear from people all the time that say, who lives over there? Can we go help them? Oh, no. They're a drunk. They've always been a drunk. Their daddy was a drunk, and their dad's dad before him was a drunk. And that's all they're ever going to be is a drunk. And then I've watched some guys walk up to that door and talk to those people and bring those drunks to Jesus. I hear people write people off and not even inviting them to the assemblies because you say, well, you invite your neighbor? Or did you invite your family? Oh, no, they have their own church. So what? He's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. We have truth. We have the gospel. We have this love of Jesus. We have hope. So what? Whatever they believe. So what? However they've lived all their life. We have something that can change hearts. It can change minds. It can tear down the imaginations and the thoughts of mankind and destroy every stronghold there is. That's the weapons of our warfare. So what? We've got to quit judging soil. We're not, I don't know what the guy, we're not your brother. We're not sitting here testing soul qualities here. That was just purely agriculture, not spiritual reference. Don't get me in trouble. But we do that with people. So we look at them and we go, seed won't grow there. And then we never throw it. It's time to stop judging the soul. And it's time to start trusting the gospel. It's time to start laboring with the Lord, who is fully capable, fully powerful, who is our co-laborer in this world, in this work. And we need to let him get his increase. And all we've got to do that is to say, I'll throw seed. I'll give people the opportunity. I'll invite. There's lots of different things we can do to try to bring people to Christ. And if you want to sit down and have a brainstorm session, I'd love to do that with you. In fact, I encourage all of you to get together and do that. Find different ways to help one another. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Is that you and I, if it's not any strangers out there, I guarantee you there's someone that you and I know that we love, that we wish would get right. You got anyone like that in your life right now? Someone you're praying for? Jesus looked down at those people who were lost and hurting, and he said, we need rescuers, and we need persistent, we need the undeterred, we just need laborers, folks. And he said, I want you to pray. I want you to pray to the Lord of the harvest that he'll send forth laborers over the harvest. If there's somebody you love right now, that you're wanting to come back to Christ or come to the gospel for the first time, this is your prayer, isn't it? How many times have you prayed, Lord, let somebody enter into their life? Lord, please send somebody who will say the thing that will finally prick them. How many times have you prayed that by your bed? For your son or for your daughter or for your parent? I want you to know that somebody else is praying that prayer right now too. And if you're not praying this prayer, I want you to be praying that prayer. Epaphras labored in prayer, the Bible says. You can labor in prayer for the gospel. I believe it's powerful. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. I don't think it's just an overcoming sin in that sense. But look, somebody else is praying the same prayer that you are, and they're praying somebody else put it in their loved one's life. Who's the answer to that prayer? It's you. You're praying for someone else to be the answer to your prayer. You're the answer to theirs. I'm the answer. Whenever this prayer for laborers happens, it's a prayer that you will recognize that you're needed as a laborer. And it's time. It's time to cast aside any of our thought processes, our defeated thought processes. It's time to put us aside any of our uncompassionate thought processes. It's time for us to get up and take action instead of waiting for the fish to jump into the boat. It's time for us to go ye therefore instead of wait a little bit longer. It's time for us to put a little bit of skin in the game instead of playing it safe. It's time for us to be persistent even when we've been shot down time after time after time. It's time for us to go out there and take a risk on somebody we thought might never change. It's time. Because the truth is, it may just be that somebody needs to hear the gospel one more time. Is that all it'll take? Romans chapter 10, he said, whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Sounds simple when you put it that way, and the truth is it is. It is a very simple message. It's a message that will confound the wise, that will enlighten the simple. The message of the gospel is simple, that Jesus Christ came in the flesh, the Son of God, and that he died on the cross, and he was buried in a rich man's tomb, and that he was resurrected on the third day. And because of God pulling him out of the grave, and him having that new life, you and I have hope that there's a new life through him and his gospel. It's a simple message. The gospel saves, and it's powerful. But what if it isn't preached? He said, how shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe on whom they have not heard? How shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except he be sent? And he is not talking just about the evangelists who are commissioned out to do this work. It's the job of every disciple to make disciples. Go therefore teach all nations. And you say, well, that's just to those originals. It's all of us. That's everything that we do boils down to discipleship and the mission of the gospel. Training, equipping the next generation for the preaching of the gospel. And when we make a disciple, we make them a disciple not to just plop on a pew, but to go make other disciples. And the call is for you and for me. Whenever companies try to sell a product, they make a commercial, put it on the TV. Unless it's a comedic, commercial, they're not putting guys on there who look like me. They're putting, the younger guys that, are still have their hair, haven't been eating potlucks for the last 20 years and things like that. They want somebody pretty on there. And that's what, when we think of, beauty and what have you in society, it's the long flowing hair and rippling muscles and things like that. But it isn't often when you're thinking about beauty that you're thinking about feet. If you're normal. But he says, how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and the glad tidings of good things. How beautiful are your feet right now? Any of you seen Jimmy's feet? Honestly, I've never seen Jimmy's feet, but I can only imagine Jim. Athlete for years, things like that. It's hard on the feet. This was written during a time whenever people were wearing sandals all over the place. I don't like wearing sandals because it's pretty nasty to walk around like that. I don't know how you do that. Makes some feet pretty dirty. I don't know how pretty Sean's feet. We were talking about him before services. Sean Zebach. the guy who looked back in the back seat and ringed me out for hating everything. I've seen Merle Fielder's feet. You know, they weren't pretty. Dead fish white. I'm telling you. But they're beautiful to the Lord. Because feet that go are feet that love their neighbor as themselves. Feet that go are feet that love the Lord with all the heart, soul, and mind. Feet that go and preach the gospel. Feet who care about eternity. Feet that go are people who are willing to be persistent no matter what it costs them. Feet that go are people who care so much they're willing to take the scars and the hurt and the wounds and the brokenness on themselves from others if it might save their soul. Feet that go are people who are willing to risk it all for just one sheep. And that's beautiful. And I don't care what they look like. I don't care how aged they are, how wrinkly they are, if they're missing a toe or not. If feet that go are beautiful. But when God looks at yours, does he see beauty? That's only a question that you can answer. But today, if you look at your own feet, and you feel like maybe you just haven't gone as much as you should. Maybe if you feel like your compassion is away. Maybe you just feel like you've just been burned out, used up, chewed up a little bit, and spit out. And you need encouragement. Whatever you need this evening, we have an opportunity to provoke one another to go. To love and good works. We have the ability to sit here and fill one another's tank so we can go another mile. We have the ability to sit here and work on one another's compassion. And I wish you'd do that this evening, because the harvest really is plentiful. No matter how much you've been shut down, no matter how many doors you've knocked and no one's come, no matter how many times you've invited and no one's ever obeyed the gospel, the harvest is still plentiful here. But the laborers are few. And if you want to go today, if you want to make your feet pretty, come forward and sit on this pew while we sing this song.